Hi there, my name's Louise Harvey, and I'm the person who did the visual work on the animated film Ascendance. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into why and how this VR film was made. It's the product of three people: my colleague Peter Moyes, who produced the film and came up with the initial idea, Mark Williams, who composed the music and crafted the spatialized audio, and myself. The project was inspired by the 20th century pioneers of what's known as visual music or colour music, the idea that music can be represented by colour and shape and movement. Artists such as Jordan Belson, Mary Ellen Butte, and others created light shows and animation to express these ideas well before the digital age, using the tools that were available to them at the time. We wondered what they might have created if they'd been around today with access to VR tools and technology. So that was the creative intention behind our project. It took us about 18 months to make in between our other work and study commitments. The creation process is kind of complex, so I'll step through it in this chart just to help to explain it. We chose to work with Mark's original musical composition Ascendance because it seemed to offer some narrative possibilities in its arrangement. In other words, when we listened to it, we could easily imagine animatable ideas and forms springing from the music. Coming out of these ideas, I then created some rough animation in Autodesk Maya, from which you can easily render out 360 format video, which I'd hand off to Mark for audio work. Then he'd use audio spatialization software to try and match the separate audio tracks in his music to where I had placed animated objects in the 360 space. When he was finished, he'd send me the audio and I'd put that into a Premiere edit with the animation and export that out into a VR format video with ambisonic sound. And we'd review that material and make changes, and then the animation would go into After Effects for compositing and for adding further particle and other effects. I'm glossing over this process quite a bit, but there was a great deal of this kind of back and forth across Mark and myself and with Peter, trying to arrive at effective audio and visual approaches. Often we'd find that our ideas just didn't work very well in VR, and we found that initially our work was just too busy with visuals and audio going every which way, which ended up feeling confusing and disorienting for the viewer. So we toned things back quite a bit. Another issue that we had was that the 3D animation often felt too clean. It had a kind of typical CGI feel to it, and we wanted something more organic, more like the artists whose work we were informed by. The solution that I came up with was to use Trapcode Particle Effects, a plugin for After Effects. And actually, this was one of the reasons that we stuck with a monoscopic format for this film rather than going for stereoscopic. That difficulty of getting these After Effects based effects to work successfully in a VR space meant that there was a lot of fudging going on to make them work, which would have become hugely complicated and potentially not doable at all if we used a stereoscopic format. For instance, I tried to keep these effects away from the poles to avoid too much distortion. Although I did use the metal graphics plugin effect to assist in getting these particle effects to conform to a VR space, ultimately it just didn't translate very well. Anyway, once we'd finalised the After Effects composite, I'd import the composite into Premiere, where we could assemble it with the final ambisonic audio and do our final export for viewing on YouTube and on head-mounted displays. So that's it. I hope you found that interesting. If you have any further questions or you want to contact me, you can do that through my website, louiseharvey.com.au.